go against Shanghai Dragons,
To
but it
be,
was a
to be
1-3
fair
loss.
though, Shanghai Dragons is no longer, they lost to Shanghai
Yep.
Dragons. Shanghai
Yeah,
Dragons
Shanghai's
is
Agreed.
pretty
a
good
very
right now.
good team right now.
Agreed. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say Shanghai was bad. I was just saying they've already lost to them. So going up against them, they're probably going to lose against Titans. Spark, I think they have a chance. Spark is a mid-tier team,
Sparks looked
and
really good, dude.
I don't see Valiant getting a single win through the rest of the stage. I'm not gonna lie to you. I
Right on the hit. Pulse Bomb gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League recap, a talk show focusing on the Overwatch League. I am Blazing Bob, and as usual, I'm joined by Mel and I Play Games. How you doing, Mel?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good to hear. And how about you, I Play?
I've been better other weeks, but Mel can have a week. I'll let her have it.
Right? It's been a while.
Feel you there. Poor Burn Blue. Yeah, Burn Blue. And then for the first time on the show, we have Andy, aka Panda, contenders, caster, open division caster, casting all kinds of different things, extraordinaire. How are you doing, sir? Welcome to the show.
doing very good. It's been long awaited. Very happy to be on the show finally to talk about some good owl matches and all of the news surrounding it, especially with good individuals such as yourselves.
Yeah. We first met at that Washington D.C. watch party. That's
Yeah,
where we first met.
that was a heck of a night too. When you ended up telling me our mutual friends between each other, when you started bringing up names like Lavasco and Mushu Beef, I was like, wait, how many different events do you two travel to, and how do you know all of these people? It's amazing.
Yeah, the podcast has definitely allowed us to travel a lot more and really we didn't take vacations probably for 9 or 8 years before this. We took like one or two over the years, and now we've taken so many the past couple of years.
Take him in all at once now.
Yeah, and I mean, they're kind of like vacations, but they're also kind of work, like lots of the times.
Yeah, they're easy to justify because you're like, this is for the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely like media is not easy. Our Washington D.C. was more of a business trip for Mel, but people didn't come to hear about that. So let's go ahead and start off the show. I always like to start off the show by thanking our recap producer Shazir. Something about the Patreon. So our Patreon has died. It is went the way of the dodo bird, and we need to rework it, but we need you guys' help. Tell us what would be good incentives for you to sub to our Patreon. Give us some help on what you would like from us. And we just need some help. We're gonna rework it, but we want to know what you guys would want from it before we go through that. But besides that, I think that's all the housekeeping we need to do tonight. We're gonna talk news, maybe a little bit of World Cup, mostly the games, and we're gonna do a little short interview to start it off with our man Andy here. So Andy, tell us a little bit about you and how you started in Overwatch.
Well, Overwatch, since the calling of the closed beta, I remember that the first trailer that ended up being released from it too. I loved all the colors. I love the idea of just a class-based shooter. I come from a more simpler time. I played a lot of Halo 2 and Halo 3, collegiately, amateurly, and everywhere else in between too. A lot of Modern Warfare 2 in my teenage years, and a lot of Gears of War. So taking all those different class bases and learning how you can end up implementing them and kind of manipulating the game around all of these different classes is where I really find Overwatch to be a very beautiful experience. Because at the end of the day, though it is six individuals working together for one clear cut objective, you also have to look at all the fine tune that goes in between all of that well oiled machine working well. All the way up to the Overwatch League too. I mean, even if it is three tanks and three supports too, each individual role is doing its own part to create the objective even possible for each team to be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, it definitely is a very complicated game, but I think that's the only reason that I have stayed in it for so long, because I play a ton of games, but usually they're pretty short-lived. And this one, I'm
Usually you
sure.
don't learn something every time you play, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and you really can. I mean, I've been playing for so long, and I have to remind myself to take advice from others a lot of times because I think, dude, I've done a whole podcast on how to play every character and all this other stuff. But I mean, you still learn constantly, and it's changing constantly too. But what drew you into casting? Because you cast. Kind of give a little bit of background of your casting experience, and then what drew you in?
Well, for casting, it was more of a stumble upon. I used to play for a team way back in the days of like maybe around like season 2 of Overwatch at the time of competitive season 2. And we were doing in this tournament. It was called I think the Scrub Cup at the time, and they asked for casters for a whole bunch of different players because they didn't have some. So my team ended up pushing me into trying to do it because at the time I was the in-game leader for my team and I was very knowledgeable and I really enjoyed the game. Such as from my previous answer of the first question, I just loved the game of Overwatch as a whole and I wanted to learn all of its ins and outs. So I started using that into my casting. And once I received a lot of good positive feedback on the YouTube video originally, during the Twitch chat of that cast as well, I started really diving further into it. At the time, I mean, when Overwatch first came out, I was already about 23, 24 years old. So I was already looking at what would I end up doing if becoming a professional player wasn't going to working out for me. And it was kind of during that right place at the right time where I was getting all this positive feedback on my casting and showing my passion for the game via my words and my verbiage that I come across in while the game is actually going on. And ended up taking, I stopped my mechanical training. I ended up ceasing taking my own personal coaching for my role, and which was mostly around hit scan. I played a lot of Ana at the time when she ended up coming out for my team when I was playing it very seriously. So I stopped taking up coaching in that, and I started going into vocal lessons, and I started taking in a whole bunch of more criticism in places where I didn't necessarily see myself going. But once I started doing more casting and specifically around Overwatch, around my comfort zone, then I started branching into other games as well. And then you start seeing me do about like 3, 4 games that I cover a lot now as well. But it's from that one experience that really just drew me and really sucked me into casting because it's my own personal way of showing my extreme passion and my love for learning more about all these games that I cover while the game is going on without even playing it myself.
Man, I wish I could
Very cool.
cast. I don't know if anybody else here has tried it, but I've tried it at game nights plenty of times, and it just comes out like, okay, they have a Reinhardt. Reinhardt charges it. I think Reinhardt just got and it's just like, it's so hard to like do that play by play. I could probably do color with some practice, a good amount of practice, but I don't know how people do the play by play. What is your favorite, play by play or color?
Well, luckily for me, I especially for Overwatch, I focus primarily on the color casting. So I'm the analyst. I'm the one that gets a new wrinkle in my brain after every single game that I cast. Practice. I like the play-by-play personally. My co-caster, I hold shift, the one that I covered Chinese contenders with in most recent going for my Overwatch casting. The thing I get mesmerized over the most is how much information they're all taking in that's going on the screen, and they're able to give it back to you in coherent and very articulative sentences. And I think that's one of the most respectable things. Why I find a good home in color, however, is because I'm able to basically take in everything that my co-caster didn't say, that they ended up missing something, and I'm able to break it down in a more analytical form, so that way the audience can end up getting a deeper understanding of why, say, the Reinhardt died earlier. Take 3-3, for example, that we know and love, that we see a lot of, especially in the Overwatch League. We can come down to a lot of different things. Could come down to poor bubble management from the Zarya. Could also come down to amp timing coming from the Lucio. It can come down to a lot of different things in those finite little spectacles that happen inside the warfare of Overwatch. I like breaking down for the audience.
Yeah, something that it seems really hard for me that I don't know how you guys do is just recalling the names of every move. Right,
And player.
like immediately.
Right.
Yeah, like Sombra's hack, and like just the different the weird ones you don't have to say a lot of times. You're like, what
Yeah, like
is that
sound
move?
wave.
Yeah.
Like the sound wave from Lucio, instead of everybody's just like, oh, look at the boop from the Lucio. I was like, yeah, it was a really good sound wave. He's like,
The boop gets a pass. Even Overwatch League says
Yeah.
that.
True.
yeah.
You say
True.
Soundwave, and I'm like, what is that?
Sound
Right.
wave.
or when you actually call Zarya's gun like the particle beam cannon, and everyone's just like, "Whoa, that sounds way more intense." Which,
Whoa,
The
if
what?
she's at if she's at
Zarya
100
has that
energy, I mean,
move?
it's a pretty slaughtering name. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of fits in wonderfully for her.
Oh, Mel, do you want to take the next one? Number
Oh,
3.
sure. Yeah,
I've just been talking a while.
I know. All right, so you're a large part of the Vice and Virtue Washington Justice group. So tell us how this started and what you've learned from being in that group.
Well, every single fan group that's been basically helping out the Overwatch League team find its home. Kind of it has its own name. You have like I think it's like the Toronto Flight. I don't want to botch too many names, but you have so many slick names for a lot of different teams. Like I know that the Atlanta Reign team also has one as well. And this is the Washington Justice fan group, kind of taken to the next level underneath the title and the mantra of Vice and Virtue. You put the two V's together, it makes a nice little W, which is pretty epic within its own self. But
Nice.
the cool part about this group starting is that it basically gives all of the Washington Justice, I guess, fans a place to come root week to week. We get a lot of different venues. Our most, I guess, home and company is where I met you all at Tenley Bar and Grills, where we have most of our watch parties. We also go down to a place that's called Penn Social for a much bigger venue. But basically, especially because esports being a little bit, it's not as grassroots here in Washington D.C. It's not as popular as says that it is over in L.A. or even South Korea, for example. It basically gives us a place to all come together. Personally remember when I was emceeing the second watch party at Penn Social, when I was looking around the room at a lot of people just going bonkers and buck wild crazy. Even when the Washington Justice got a simple 2K inside of Graviton Surge. I mean, like it's insane because it's like that amount of passion exists in my home city, and we're able to all practice it and show our love for the team in our home state too. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie too. I mean, there's a lot of teams that aren't doing too hot in the Overwatch League right now. Washington Justice is one of them, but it's still very important to have a fan group at home, that somebody that you're playing for. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, even if these players aren't necessarily playing for me or all of the others here that root together with Vice and Virtue, it still gives them something to fight for every single day. That they still have a home field that they can come back to and realize that every time that they end up getting a kill or two, or we draw out on the assault map like we did in our previous match, that we're still here cheering them on. We're still looking for their further growth and development.
Dude, you did a
Yeah.
really good job. Like, because I remember the loss was pretty rough the night we came, but you did a really good job of hyping the crowd. I tried to help you. I might have hurt more than I helped, but uh, just a
In your
follow
fuel
up
jersey.
question, real quick. Yeah, in my fuel jersey. Just a follow up question to that. Being part of that fan group has allowed you to do like player interviews and stuff of that nature, right?
Yeah, actually, at that same bar, Tenley Bar and Grill, were actually able to do a home field interview. I was actually able to talk to all the coach, the staff, even like right down to assistant manager Pre. I was able to talk to every single one of the players as well. There was only a handful of them, I believe, that weren't actually a part of like the whole interviewing process, but I was able to talk through a lot of them. Even during their when they came to visit here in DC for I believe it was about 4 days that they were here, and I was able to really
Super cool.
connect with them, and I was able to help them unfold themselves and open up to the crowd that was all housed around that bar at the time too. It was a really cool experience, and very humbling for me as well. I got to learn a lot, myself included, especially from Wizard Young and MKL, the head and assistant coach for the team of the
Yep.
Washington Justice,
Mhm.
because I myself I coach a team that will be battling in open division, and it was just very it was a big humbling experience for me too. I got a lot of good insight.
Yeah, super,
That's
super
awesome.
That's
cool. That
super
was
awesome.
actually why he missed the first show that he was supposed to come on, because that
Oh, okay.
Oh,
opportunity
gotcha.
came up, and I was like, dude,
Yeah.
it's not even a choice, man. Go do
And
it.
all this stuff that you say is super true because we have it here in Atlanta too. Like you said, we have the Atlanta Royal family, and
Yeah,
I've
that's
been,
right.
yeah, I've been a big part of that group as well. I've been going to all their game nights or as many as I can make it, or not game nights, but their watch parties. And they've been super active in uniting the community. Some of the events have been massive, driving in more than 300 people, and other ones have been smaller and cozy, but it's really cool because you get to know people from your city that, like you said, share your passion, and now it's developed into this like group of friends that you know who to expect, and each time there's like new people that are coming in. I get to know everybody else, and it's all around Overwatch. And like you said, that locality, having that team to root for, to unite everyone in those places is super important, regardless of whether the team is number 1 or number 20, right? I think that's just having that unifying like colors and like a thing to root for. That's all you need.
Yeah, all of those support groups that just generalize and just come together. I think everybody just ends up getting taken for a turn, and they can't help themselves but to smile too, because you yourself, you're passionate. I mean, you got to think about it, right? Like even when I'm doing a lot of these casts, I am at home, right? I spend a lot of time even working from home, and it's really in my bedroom. I'm not gonna lie to you too. The
Right?
green screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just smoke and
You
mirrors,
don't
but
get to see that people, yeah,
exactly.
behind the
So I
screen.
Exactly. So when you go out and you get to actually share that experience, that passion with other people, then you really get breaking to the next level too. And it's kind of like your first hockey game or your first football game, right? Like you end up feeling all that passion. You're just like, people are actually that excited over a headshot from a Widowmaker as I am. And when you're in the middle of the crowd too, I mean, even taking myself back to grand finals at the Barclays Center last year, that feel and that fire that you feel inside yourself, you can't help but just lose your voice after about 4 hours. It's crazy.
We don't like to talk about the grand finals on this show.
Definitely is. I
I
actually did lose my voice completely after the Dallas homestand. I mean, it was bad. We had to cancel
Oh,
the
I believe it.
show, and yeah, I couldn't talk at all. It was bad. Um, I played. You want to take this last one, or did you not get my message?
Sure. You've told us a lot about Overwatch and how you got into it. What do you like doing on your off time? Any other hobbies or anything to keep your mind sane after long hours of competitive Overwatch?
It's really funny you mentioned that too. Well, my everyday, if you will, is a place that's called the Game Gym. It's a place that's here local for me in Potomac, Maryland. If you're local here as well, it's one of the very few places in this whole area that basically it's kind of like a gymnasium for kids, but for esports, for Super Smash Bros, League of Legends, Overwatch, and that's my day
Oh,
to
that is
day,
It's kind of
so
like
cool.
local host
I
Denver.
think I've heard about
basically.
this.
Yeah.
It's like a gym for esports, right? Like where
Mhm.
you go train
It's
video
a place
games.
for you to basically up your game in a positive place for both for your like mentality. It's basically the same thing for like a gym membership that you would get at like any other weightlifting gym, but it's here for esports here in a localized setting, especially for youngsters too. I even put yourself in their shoes, right? You're that age, and I can even say from my own perspective that playing Halo at that young age, that if I had a place to go to after school that I can learn even through like summer camps and stuff like that too, I would take up that offer 100% too, because the coaching there is all just immaculate.
Absolutely.
We get
Making
to
me
like
want to
look
go
after.
back in time.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like it's such a crazed experience too that you wouldn't
Golden age
necessarily
of
think
video
of it.
games.
Right, exactly. And we're finally there that you can really take advantage of that too. That like say that you're not feeling well or like you can't make it, that you can join in remotely, because that's where we're at, and joining like Discord calls and everything happening online nowadays. So it's all completely applicable for a multitude of ages, but especially for the youngsters that we end up doing. So my entire day to day is basically surrounded by Overwatch, both for that place and for my own personal life as well. Like I said, I'm also a full-time coach, so not only studying the game on a day-to-day basis, but it's really all around Overwatch. But anything away from the game too, I enjoy taking a longboard. I have this really cool path that's around my house that I get to take, and the walk up the hill is just as fun as it is skating down the hill at about a solid 35 miles per hour. So
Oh
Dude,
man.
other than
that
that,
sounds really cool. So
yeah,
you work at this place. Is it like your day job kind of thing?
yeah. That's literally my day job. I get
Oh,
to I
that's
get to work with
awesome, dude.
their coaching curriculum. We build a whole system around just a positive way for kids to learn how to play Overwatch and a lot of other FPS games too. Because it's not just Overwatch that I play myself. Obviously, you know, if you throw in like Apex Legends or anything like that too, like I can help out a lot of different kids for a lot of different things, and it's all just around just generalized FPS play. So it's basically all just around the humble experience that like these kids want to be able to be very good at their game of choice, even if it's just for that one day. Well, we have a coach that can basically help you learn one thing, set a finite amount of goals, and set yourself a pace to basically become, I guess, a higher level than you once were the
That is
previous one
super
too.
cool, dude.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's a really cool.
gosh.
It's a really nice experience too, and I think especially for parents. I mean, hell, if my parents like ended up taking part of this and they were reading about it when I was getting into esports, they would have been so much more happier hearing this from, say, like a coach rather than like a 9-year-old kid that's basically talking to them about esports for the first
Oh,
time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
How
so
long-
let's
how
talk
long is
about
it?
this. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just asking, how long has this place been running? Because this is fairly recent, right?
About a year. Yeah, we've been open for just a little over a year now.
Very
About
cool.
to do our second rendition of summer camp coming around in about 12 days, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our generation, okay, well, my generation, your parents always said, like, I had to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow, right? That was always the analogy of, like, you're spoiled.
Mhm.
What do you think the analogy will be now compared to, like, video games, right? Nobody walked uphill both ways to
I had
school.
to blow by cartridges before I gamed.
Yeah, I had to blow out cartridges. We had all kinds of different nifty little tricks to get the game to
Digital
work.
download. I had to go to the store.
You ever heard of CD-ROM, my friend?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
remember
I had
like
to
the whole
walk
like
to the
CD-ROM
store.
cleaning kit, and like you would have the same thing for like your Super Nintendo games too. It was like this weird, large-looking vacuum cleaner thing that you would,
It
like,
would
put
shave
your
off.
cartridge in.
It would
Yeah.
shave off the top layer of the disc because the
Mhm.
top layer was scratched, so it would literally shave it off.
Never understood how those things.
Yeah,
You're
it was.
complaining about your 120 SSD. I had 8 discs for my game.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? Too, because I mean, when I was playing a lot of Halo, I remember my little 9-inch tube TV because it's the only thing that my parents could afford at the time for myself. And my Xbox 360 it got the Red Ring of Death a handful of times too, and it was hard to pay for that out of my own pocket, but it was what I had to for my own worth that I was able to play in a lot of tournaments for it. But
The Best
I
Buy
think
exchange plan, my friend, was the best thing ever. 50
Yeah.
bucks, they replace it completely, and you pay 50 more bucks, and then you just come back in, replace it completely, 50 more bucks. Like, it was literally the only way I survived the Red Ring crisis.
I'm trying to remember
Red
specifically what
Ring
I did.
crisis.
It really
It
was.
really
It was. A problem.
was. Yeah,
Until
they
the Elite
actually
came out, it was
started.
terrible.
Yeah, they actually extended the warranty of the original Xbox 360, and it was a big old to do. Like, it was a big problem.
Yeah. But I think to answer your question though, Mel, the difference in like basically being in the hierarchy, I guess, of esports would be like, can you afford a better computer? Can you afford a better monitor for
Right.
higher FPS too? Because it really does make all the difference now. I mean, you even saw at E3, we're gonna have a new Xbox, new consoles that are gonna be able to reach above 120 FPS. So I mean, that's gonna be able to send the benchmark for one gamer to the next. Dude, do you actually have the affordability for these monitors, this equipment, and everything to basically set yourself in a deeper pace? Now, don't get me wrong, too. I mean, I know a kid that like literally plays main tank at the top 500 level at 30 FPS just as well as anybody that does at 300 FPS too. And he'll beat them too. Like, and I'm talking contesting against like some of the Overwatch League players too. And he's in tier 3 Overwatch. But the thing that you have to put that as well is that if he ended up having that, like, how much more would he be able to be uplifted from it, or how much is he being held back from it as well? But I don't think the difference
Or
is
would
will
he
be
just suck?
Yeah,
Like, he'd be like,
exactly.
whoa!
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and
Everything's so smooth.
a fun fact: EQO hit #1 on the ladder on a 30 FPS laptop.
Yeah. that's a crazy
Internal
thing, too.
graphics.
It's like
Crazy.
Yep. And terrible internet too.
All right, well, let's jump in and let's just shoot through the news really quick. Former GM Susie Kim, who hasn't been the GM for a bit but was doing other jobs at Cloud9, has decided to leave Cloud9 to pursue other opportunities. Susie, we wish you the best of luck. Immortals Gaming acquires Infinite Esports, parent company of Optic Gaming and the Houston Outlaws. Currently, they're using a sub company within the company to manage Houston. There's been rumors that they're still not giving them any money or anything, but I think we're moving towards a point to where someone could buy the Houston Outlaws. There's been a lot of speculation. Anybody heard anything? Leaks?
I haven't heard any rumors. I was actually surprised that the organization was sold. To me, it sounds like they were really struggling. They wanted a way out, and they just had to find somebody to like cover the bases in the meantime, right? And Immortals just kind of stepped up there.
I think they wanted into like the CS:GO and LCS portions of Optic, but I don't know a whole
Yeah,
bunch
they
Gets
about
them
just
it.
into
had to
COD
buy the
too.
whole thing. Yeah, Call of Duty. I think they just had to buy the whole thing. They weren't like siphoning it off to different parts. They bought the entire thing. But I did hear there was somebody that was gonna buy
Labasco
it.
thinks that 1,000 thieves or 100 thieves or whatever outside of Chicago is going to buy it. It's going to buy Houston.
Yeah.
Ooh, Chicago's getting a team?
Well, maybe.
Mm,
There's no word on if like teams can change branding or anything. Like I would assume they can. I mean, especially since you're going to have an arena for
I
next
mean,
year.
if they change owners, my guess is it's
Uh,
up to the owners, right? You
Yeah,
have to rebrand it.
it's got to be. Like you could keep Outlaws, but it might be, the Chicago
The Chicago
Outlaws,
Outlaws.
which
Yeah,
Yeah.
would
maybe it
should be
works like baseball
mobsters.
too. That'd be maybe it does work like baseball in that regard. Like you ended up like switching ownership, you can end up like selling the team, you move to the different city and end up taking up a different handle too. And then yeah, I guess if 100 Thieves, I mean you got to look at all the teams that they've been making for their own self too. I mean they've been taking over most professional esports as of late. So I mean it's wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
All that we do
Although
know is they
yeah,
have
it
to
would be
sell it.
yeah they do because I mean it is against it is against a certain fine print inside the Overwatch League ruling that you can't end up owning two different teams, which is why that whole sub company ended up coming around itself, if I do believe as well.
yeah. And they will Blizzard did like acknowledge that they can keep the Outlaws for while they're trying to sell it, but it still puts the Outlaws in this kind of like limbo where they're not getting any money. They're not going to like put a bunch of money into the Outlaws to sell them, right?
Right.
Especially since they had a good week.
Yep.
Come on, Outlaws.
Flame should probably be happy they're not making any changes right off the bat. But moving on, Twitch connection issues during out. Now I didn't get a chance to read this one. Mel, do you want to hit this one?
Well, I mean, I think we noticed it when we were watching Owl that there was some like lag and some just like pausing and whatnot.
I noticed it the
But
week before, not this week though. Oh, I guess this is probably from the week before this article.
I
this
think it has
article's
something
no,
to
it's
do
from
with
June 15th.
I think it was Twitch servers. I don't think it had anything to do with the Overwatch servers that they're playing on because that isn't its own personalized server for one. I think that it actually had a problem to do with Twitch itself too because I that was the one article that or not, I guess it's not an article. That was one of the different subcategories I guess I read as I was like browsing Reddit the morning afterwards was just Twitch ended up having a problem with their servers all across the West Coast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally the snafus and mishaps in the Overwatch League, as far as Twitch, have been Twitch problems. Anytime there's been a problem, I have been able to watch it fine on MLG. So I think that
Yeah.
the broadcast for Al is pretty spot on. Moving on to team news, Dragons release Guardian. What do you guys think about this? Anybody have any thoughts?
I mean, Guardian himself, like you got to look at the roster of Shanghai, right? Like, is he actually going to get any playtime? Probably not because of his own role, right? He plays Diva, which they have Ding in that could be the Diva, and they're running a lot of solo as well. And when they are running anything that requires the Diva, it's not really for long. It's like for very niche parts of like any part of the map too. And they have Geggery waiting in the sidelines as well. So if they wanted to go a more standard 2-2-2 composition around dive, then it would just be Gamsu and Geggery there. Not to mention how
True.
Ding would be more than applicable to take up that mantle as well if they ever needed to go a Sombra based composition. But Guardian, I mean, it's probably better for Guardian to get released so that way they can end up fighting a better team, like whether it's going back to contenders, I mean, or whether it's going to Korean contenders now that we're working our way into that off of trials now. Maybe it could end up being a benefit for Guardian, but I think it's not necessarily a hurt for either of these two individuals. I mean, sure, Guardian loses a home, but like I don't think it's like too detrimental. I mean, now he can end up going to a place where he could see playtime.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if he didn't want the release.
I mean,
It's always
he's
a
only played
question.
one series in like stage 1, I think. So
I was gonna say I don't even remember watching Guardian play.
I think it was when they, it was like even when Gamsu was coming on too, and he was still nervous to play like main tank. I think that's when Guardian was playing. They were still like shuffling around like main tanks.
Mhm.
That was like the only game that they ended up playing.
Feels like forever ago. But Mayhem signed a new main support in Rain. Is this anybody that you know about, Panda?
Rain comes from O2 Blast. O2 Blast got second in the previous season of Korean contenders. It wasn't exactly a close match, but against Element Mystic. But Rain was also a part of the team, I believe, when they were doing the showdown as well. But again, O2 Blast didn't too well during the showdown as well, the Pacific one at that. It's very steady support to my understanding. O2 Blast also had a plethora amount of supports I know they were playing around with too. I mean, if there's one thing for certain, I'm not gonna lie, especially for their hero pool, it is around the main support, which is mostly Lucio Mercy. Does have a pocket Ana, to my understanding. So maybe they could end up bringing him in, teaching him how to play Zenyatta, because I'm not gonna lie, out of like the support category for Florida Mayhem alone too. I mean, Hagopin has been underperforming, quite frankly,
For sure.
more than anybody on Florida Mayhem. I know it's really hard to get down to that nitty gritty who's underperforming the most on the Mayhem, but it's, in my opinion, it's around Hagopin. I mean, his time to build trances, his flexibility, and not to mention just his overall positioning is pretty bad. So I mean, it could be a place where they're starting to look at, but they've been rebuilding that roster since what, like stage 2, season 1. So I mean, who the heck knows what they're playing
It all
with.
started when they stopped the walkouts. I'm telling you, like it was their downfall.
They need
Bring
the
'em back.
back.
Should have never
Right?
stopped.
Come on.
I think it's just, another in the long line of the bare hands changes. It all feels a little too late,
Yeah.
But so the World Cup, all the people were named that are going to be the coaches, GMs, and community leads. We're not going to just read them all off. They're all on the Blizzard website, but if we could just name some of the people we know, like Canada, Jane is going to be
I only put down the Overwatch League people in this little.
Oh well,
thing
here.
on
Do
our
you
notes.
just want to read it off then? I mean,
I
do
can.
that.
I was just seeing who from the Overwatch League is involved in the World Cup this year, and I don't know if I got all of them, but I think I got most of them. So in Australia, we've got Gunba from the Uprising, who is the coach. Then in Canada, Fuel is taking over apparently, and Jane is the general manager, and Takati is the coach.
And they got
Both from-
Karki as well as their community lead, which is really
Right.
nice.
And then for China, the coach is Rue, the Hunters coach.
RUI.
Thank you. And then Finland, the Paris Eternal coach Sieta is the coach there. South Korea, the coach is Krusty from the Shock. Norway, the coach is MKL, Michael.
MKL.
Okay, thanks. Russia, this is interesting. So former Uprising player Mistakes is the general manager for the Russian Overwatch World Cup team, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, he's a
Singapore,
good player.
he is a good player. I don't know what his GM skills are like,
Yeah, it's
but
just
hey,
like
whatever.
GM. It just seems a little off.
Maybe he's a very composed guy. I mean, he seems like an intellectual.
Yeah,
Maybe he's
is.
trying to show off his team building skills for a different job in the league.
Yeah, man, we know he's not playing anytime soon, so
Right.
gotta
Might
find
as
his
well
place.
find a new niche. Singapore, we have John Galt from the Gladiators as the coach. Sweden, former Mayhem player Swoosh is the coach. The UK, Stylosa, who's not directly Overwatch League, but kind of close, is the GM. And Hayes from Fusion is the coach. And then the US, we've got Arrow from the Fuel is the coach. And then Baldwin is the general manager. He's the director of social media and community from the Gladiators.
Baldwin is a she.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, she was the social media last year. I'm pretty sure too.
She did was it the social media? She did do the social media. Maybe it was that or the
think so.
general manager.
I think she
One
has
of-
the social media.
Yeah.
She did one of them, and from everything I heard from everybody, she did a really good job. So, all right, guys,
And I
let's talk
know-
about
and I
some
know
games.
Swoosh did a lot of work inside contenders as well. He's a bright mind.
Swoosh was a Genji turned monkey player, which I always thought was so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Played pro Genji, then played pro monkey.
EU contenders is a hell of a place, I tell you. It changes you.
Oh, but let's jump in and talk some games. I'm gonna let Mel start this one off this week. Let's talk about the Outlaws to start off. Mel, why don't you take us away?
Okay, well, first off, I want to say that this is the first week that I have not gotten to watch games live because I had a work event all week. And so all I know is I get all these messages of like, oh my God, I can't believe Houston won. What? And I was like,
And she's at a work thing where she can't really be like, hey guys, I gotta check my nerdy thing here real quick.
hold on. Yeah, right. I have two separate lives. So that was fun. So I come home and I watched the VOD because I was like, I just have to see what happened. And I don't know. I mean, last week they put up a great fight against New York, but you're always kind of like, is this just Houston, putting up a good fight, not being able to pull out the win here? And then they go against Shock, game one on Thursday. And I'm not going to lie, they looked good. And they stuck with the same roster for the most part. I think they switched a little bit more on Thursday than they did on Saturday or Friday. But they, the Somber Goats was great. And I think it just really threw San Francisco Shock off, even though they like to say that they could beat Somber Goats. They couldn't beat our Somber Goats.
Well, and
And
Linkser played a lot on Widow too.
I know. And we played our DPS comp. So we had Linkser on Widow, we had Jake on Pharah.
Jake was killing his
Hanzo.
Farah too.
Yeah. And I do want to point out that Boink was on Mercy a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure those are the maps we lost. But I don't want to point fingers. I'm just saying. Don't put Boink on Mercy. It's not his forte. And then and then we went against Uprising, who's obviously been having some struggles this stage. But they really struggled against Houston. Houston 4-0'd Uprising. And I think they were
I
off a little momentum of like, we just beat Shock.
I-
Whoa.
I thought it was hilarious that Zoe was like, okay, because after it was over, Fusions just mashes the table. And Zoe goes, well, I thought it was funny because Jake's the only one that's done that before. And now Jake's passed it on to Fusions. And it got me thinking, are we going to have like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with like desk smashing? Is the next desk match going to be somebody playing against Fusions and they're just going to keep passing it?
I just want to point out, did anybody throw a fit on Twitter because Fusion slammed the desk like he was a crazy person? No.
Someone
'cause it's
even
not
put,
weird.
yes, they did. And someone even put a comment on our interview with Fusions months ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it got blown up all across like Reddit. There were like tons of memes that were getting thrown around Twitter and all that kind of stuff too. It was maddening.
Maybe I'm just more aware of that than I am the
I don't
Uprising.
blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you.
Well, let's get
She
some
is
of
in the
you
jersey.
guys' thoughts. Either I play or Panda. Give it to us.
I thought that Outlaws finally looking like they're alive this week. Like you could see in their faces the way they were playing wasn't. I don't feel like they had that much pressure on them. They were enjoying themselves finally. They were playing compositions that they're actually really good at. They were abusing Dante. They were getting, like you said, Jake on the Pharah, Linkser on the Widowmaker.
They won a map 5.
Yeah, they won them at 5. And more importantly than that, I love that they contested the top tier team on their goats, right? Even
Mhm.
though San Francisco Shock was playing goats, which is what they're best at, they were beating their match against these compositions that were not full goats, right? And I love that because that's a meta push right there. Like if that keeps happening a little bit, it just keeps putting pressure on these top teams to being like, we're not gonna be able to run goats at least on every map, right? And there's maps that at least in here it showed, and maybe Truck was having an off day, I don't know, but for the most part, Outlaws were playing really solidly, and they were just stomping over them. Ilios, for example, is a showcase of that. Shock could just not get away with goats in this map, and they were just forced. Their hand was forced, and I love that, right?
And
Right.
Dante's Sombra play, I watched it intently, and when he was playing Shock, it was amazing how he knew which support Zen or Lucio had ult. and how he always was able to get them with the of Afavadas Lucius. What's it called? Dig it.
Apagando las luces.
Oh, the
Turning off
EMP.
the
Yeah,
lights.
he
Ethan.
was able to hit the support with ult almost every time, and Super had to be tilted because Super hates Sombra.
Super was mega tilted. Did you watch
Yeah.
any of the interviews after the game
I-
with Super?
I
he was
don't
not
think I
happy.
did.
He
Oh,
was not
just him
happy.
being like, we should have won. Like, okay.
There was a
We
watch
didn't.
point. It was watch point. He was basically like talking down on Sombra Goats, calling it a cheese comp, and if they hadn't played Sombra Goats, they would have won, and all this other stuff. It's like, come on, Super, you can't
Yeah.
call it a cheese comp when you're just running goats everywhere you go.
Right.
I think
And
most of the
if we hadn't played
Overwatch
Summer
community,
Goats,
they think of it as a crutch. They look at it as a crutch. It's just like you can't win without taking our abilities away too. It's just like, well, you can be smart like that too, but like it's also the only silence in the game, and go figure that you need your abilities when you're playing 3-3 to actually effectively do anything
Right.
in this day and
And-
age. So I mean,
but
And
it's also like
that's why
that's a
Sombra's
player. You
good.
can choose that player too.
Yeah,
Like,
well, but
yeah.
that's
You can
why
take away our
Sombra's
abilities,
good
too.
though, is because it's goats.
Yeah.
If they're playing the ball triple DPS, Sombra's not, not that good. And the only reason they play Sombra in the ball is because they're going up against goats. You know what I mean? So like Sombra's only really, really good because everybody in that 3-3 needs those abilities. Ryan's basically useless as soon as he gets hacked. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pokemon,
absolutely.
did
that's
you
what I was
have
gonna
other
mention
thoughts?
too. That's what I was gonna mention too. Was that like the thing about Houston Outlaws? What makes them so strong right now too is that they thrive in the chaos, and that's why they do well in the triple DPS composition. They put up double supported. Like you look at Dante like being able to pick apart like the support that has the support ultimate to counteract against EMP. That comes down to their ultimate tracking. Like that's not so much as a mechanical skill in the game as it is built around like their macro beneficiary, and that's just around them having more time just playing together. I mean, like there's some kind of like long thread that's going across like the town right now too, especially for Overwatch League teams. That this team, the Houston Outlaws, have been scrimming a little bit longer, and scrim bucks don't mean anything, but what it does mean, it means more practice in the formal realm of Overwatch, which I mean, we all know for a fact too. Like the games that we're watching on stage for Overwatch League are incredibly different than the games that we're playing online in our competitive matches, all the way up to Grandmaster and top
Yep,
500.
I was just about to
They're-
say that all the
they're
way up the
hellaciously
ladder.
different. They are hellaciously different, and the thing that Houston Outlaws are exhibiting is just extreme play time. They have refined their ultimate tracking and their understanding of how the chaos composition works, especially around Muma's ball. It allows Jake to play very far and be able to get these direct rockets, which then lets Linkster shine, who we all know is Finland's gift to esports as far as his Widowmaker is concerned. And you
As
take that
Hex
and you bring,
says all the time.
exactly.
Yep.
And you bring that to the next level, and you have Dante, who's an amazing Sombra. You take all these components of just individual star power, and you let them thrive around the chaos that is Muma's very high caliber wrecking ball. And you have a team that can succeed, because any 3-3 team, if they can't counteract the chaos by basically going against what's ever disrupting them, then they're never going to be able to get their footing, because goats only works when you have your abilities and your all 6 components are left alive and finding one problem at a time.
Why did it
And,
take? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, now that you mentioned Muma, I think that the playstyle that they were playing this week was so much more conducive to Muma. Because Muma is a great Reinhardt, but he's a very aggressive Reinhardt. You need to be making space from him. And with the goats that they were playing, it requires a more methodical Reinhardt, like Super plays it. If you watch Super play, you almost have to beg him to charge. He rarely ever charges anyone. Well, Muma, any excuse to charge somebody, he'll take it. And
My
both styles
man.
work, right? But you have to enable that aggressiveness from Muma, and I think that their team was doing a great job. He's also a fantastic wrecking ball, like you said, because I think he plays to like that aggression that he likes doing.
Why did it
Yeah,
take
he
so
is.
long? Sorry, go
For
ahead.
what?
I was just gonna say, why did it take so long for the Outlaws to finally give this a shot?
Listen, we're not even gonna go there. Pretty sure it was Monty. I'm just kidding. I'm
I
totally
think it's
kidding.
them finding their comfort, really. I mean,
Yeah, it saves time sometime.
you remember Tyrong even came out with the tweet in stage 1 of the season as well. He was like, well, I guess Goats is a little bit more, what was it, like in depth or diverse, and he had once thought it too. Well, it's like, well, Are you kidding me? Like, obviously, yes. There's so many different ways. You got kids like IOStucks that are literally writing 75-page theses on what everybody's calling GOATS level 1 at this point too. Now you got people playing what's called GOATS level 2, which is around like if you look at the gravitons that are being thrown out, it's not bomb that's being connected with it. Now the Reinhardts are looking to pin the Brigitte because you can't save that Brigitte unless you have passive bubble up. So you burn the bubble, kill the Brig. It's a one fight after the graviton rather than guaranteeing the bigger bomb play with the self-destruct. Now you use that one defensively. So you see like there's like this meta shift that's happening within the already meta that is 3-3.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of people aren't realizing too. But for the Outlaws and why it may have taken so long, it's just about finding the playstyle that works for them too. I mean, even look at Shanghai and how they were able to take apart Paris and make their own composition out of it too, with the Orisa and the Pharmacy, with the Ana, but they still have the 3 tanks to go along with it. It's really weird, but it works out for them too because it's around their play style. And I think again, going back to the thriving in the chaos, that's where Outlaws can shine because they have a strong Widowmaker and Linkser, not a strong Tracer. He can get by on it for a little bit, but it's not anywhere near the caliber. It's the same thing with Rockus and his Ana versus his Zenyatta too. Doesn't thrive on Zenyatta as much as he does on Ana, and it's the same thing that we were talking about with Boink. Obviously a Lucio player, not the greatest Mercy player in the world too, but in a world where the Outlaws can play ball comps or Orisa compositions around, say, Cool Matt's Diva, and say Linkster's Ash with any variation of that too, if they play to their strengths, that's where they're gonna find success too. And that's kind of like breaking down what Monty was basically saying too. Like bring back the triple DPS because it's what they thrive in because they have specialists in each one of their roles. It's not that they're a strong GOATS team like San Francisco Shock or Vancouver Titans. That's not where they find comfort in. But you even bring yourself to Outlaws when they were pushing Vancouver back too. They did that on triple DPS.
Right.
And
I think
we've
they
talked about
also
that. Sorry, go ahead, Mel.
No, I was just gonna say, I think they also practiced their goats, which I think has helped them, right? Because you do still have to play goats at some point. You can't win entirely off triple DPS. Look at the hunters, right?
But I think they've
They even go play
actually
goats sometimes.
I
But
think they've
yes, you're
actually
right.
conformed to going the Sombra version of Goats for the most part.
For the most part, yes. But I think that's more of a composition thing because Dante's Diva is really lackluster, right? I think sometimes regular goats would be more ideal, but Dante is good enough at Sombra that he makes it work where it's good to go Sombra goats, rather than having Cool Matt in there.
Well,
But
it's
I
not,
also
sorry, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
please.
No,
Well,
go.
I like that you bring that up too, because I mean, you look at NYXL too. Look who finally made a grand appearance back to the main stage of the Overwatch League, and that's Sabiobi, who literally comes in. It's not like he's Dante, who's like he'll flex to Diva. No, Sabiobi literally is just there to play Sombra, and they keep Nene in to play the Zarya. This is the first time ever that Meko for NYXL hasn't seen much playtime at all, too.
Right.
And most of us that are fans are probably sitting there flabbergasted by it, but it's them abusing the disruption part that is Sombra. That if you have somebody that can get by and firing off on 75% success rate on Sombra, because I'm not going to lie, Sabiobi Sombra, it's not immaculate, but it's at the same pace that Dante's is at, that you can probably get by with having your own Zarya specialist in there too. And I know Cool Matt Zarya isn't at the same level as Spreeze is as well, but for maps that you can end up getting away with that too, there's no reason why you can't end up just trying to hard spam out just Sombra compositions legitimately everywhere, because NYXL are spamming 3-2-1, which is triple support, the Lucio, Zenyatta, and the Brigitte, along with a Reinhardt and Zarya, and then a Sombra. You can spam that out anywhere, even when high ground matters. As long as you play around the objective and you make the enemy team come to you, you're going to get a hack off, and then you're going to be able to build the EMP, and your damage output at that point is just so disgusting. It's just what a lot of teams are abusing these days.
Well,
And
and
I think
Sabiobi
Linkster's-
plays it like an assassin too, which is really
He
cool
plays it
to
like
watch.
Tracer.
Yeah, I mean
He
it's
plays
cool
very
to watch.
backline, but he's also with his team too. You'll notice like he's always standing along like the thick, like in between the Brigitte and the Reinhardt, like right in the middle of the teams too. Me and my team even joke around what we call it the Soldier 76 style of playing Sombra, because even when somebody's getting close to your Reinhardt, it's such a free hack because they can't cancel it because you're behind the shield anyway, that you can just use a translocator to get further into the backline. It's very I would probably say it's even past assassin. I would say it's very surgical the way he plays Sombra right now.
Definitely. All right, well,
Yeah, I love the discussion, and not to like keep going too much about it, but I feel it makes sense to all of the teams and like how the stage is kind of evolving. And we've mentioned before in the show where left alone, metas start evolving on their own, right? And people start
Mhm.
figuring things out because everyone starts getting to the same playing field and they start discovering new things and new nuances of the composition and ways that they can counter that and ways that they can get around all these things that you didn't know how to do before. Compositions like Clockwork Vendetta, things that you never thought it could have worked before, start popping out here and there. And sure, not at the highest level, because at that level it's going to take the most time. But even teams like the Outlaws, like New York Excelsior, are slowly evolving, like you guys are saying. And I think it's really cool. I don't know if we're going to completely get out of the triple support kind of meta that we're seeing right now, because that is just so powerful. But even compositions like Ball quadruple DPS with a Mercy have a
Mm.
time and place in some of these maps. So I don't know. I really have been enjoying this stage because some breakthroughs have been made at least.
One last
Definitely.
thing before we move on. I know you want to move on, Bob, but one last thing.
I'm
I do
trying
also
hard.
I know, but I do also think you can't discount the map pool, right? So we're seeing more DPS comps from the Outlaws, but the map pool I think is a little bit more conducive to some more DPS comps than maybe the last stage was. Now, take that with what you will, but I don't think it's all just, they finally figured it out.
Maybe, and it's also the Wild West as far as the new map Havana's concerned. And that one's been really interesting to watch the comps people decide to go with and how far people get and everything. And it's been interesting, but they've dominated that map so far. Like they own that map.
I don't think anybody knows what's going on that map. Well,
Well,
we've only seen like
Outlaws
two
do
full
because
completions,
Outlaws
right?
have won every one of them.
Yeah.
I'm
Again,
almost
I think it
positive
worked.
that I might be a little off. I'm pretty positive they've won every time they played Havana.
Again, it's a map that thrives for them too. It's the same thing. Like if you saw them on Junkertown right now too, they would be able to thrive for it. They full held. They only got one capture point against San Francisco. For Havana. For the Outlaws.
But they still won,
But
right?
they still won. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, out of like seeing all three parts of Havana, we've only seen like that, I think, 2 or 3 times since stage 3 has even begun. But the map itself is just really weird. It's very wide open in a way that it's just like it kind of reminds me personally of Junkertown, where like the sight lines mean almost everything, and then you just see teams just like foreheading out and just completely just playing goats all the way through. But then you had like that one iteration. What was it? It was Chengdu versus Seoul Dynasty, and you had Chengdu playing this variation of bunker on defense versus Seoul Dynasty's solo tank Orisa. And I thought that was a really cool adaptation on like where the meta currently is too, because I think especially going forward with that potential leak of the 222 roll lock, especially coming in for stage 4, that could be what we're looking at, is a little bit more bunker sensations, and especially for the map pool, to go back to Mel's point, bearing this back in full circle as well, is that any one of these maps that have a little bit less terrain, a little bit less cover, a little bit less flank routes, is going to create a lot more exciting chaos rather than just like the very tank driven sensation that we've been used to. Maybe a little bit more dive, a little more bunker. Maybe Baptiste gets more playtime. Who the heck knows?
Yeah, I think if they actually fix this Brigitte bug that was found by what's his name, the guy that does all the workshop stuff,
Darwin
Darwin.
streams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he found a brig bug that's probably been in there the entire time. Where when she's doing her inspiration, basically her armor does double work, and it's real interesting because that means it's doing double work on probably everybody, but we're gonna have to wait and see that. But that might be a big change to this whole comp that we didn't even see coming if they're able to fix it. But moving on, what do you guys want to talk about? The downfall of Fuel or the downfall of Boston?
Or the downfall of Atlanta.
Or yeah,
There's
or
a lot of
yeah.
downfalls happening right now,
There's
guys.
a lot of downfalls.
We'll
Well,
let you start with Atlanta. I'll take Fuel, and then we can all take Boston.
it sounds perfect. Atlanta has broken my heart this week. Like broken. Bob can attest to it. He saw me come back of my watch party on Thursday, I believe. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it was Thursday against Shanghai Dragons. It was a contested game. I felt like we had it, and then sometime towards the end, we just let it slip out of our hands. and the last map was just a complete wash. I don't know what we were even doing there in that last map. It was terrible. And same against the Dynasty. Even though we went back and forth on a few maps, overall, we just looked really disconnected. And I don't know at this point what is happening with the team because they were looking really strong ending last stage. They were looking strong starting this stage,
Yep.
taking
Yeah,
San
starting.
Francisco Shock to game 5. And now they just been slipping. And at this point, we are in danger of not even making it for on to in like the middle group that has that stage playoff capacity. Why are they calling it? Why are they calling that
They're
group?
calling it the. Hold on. What is? Hold on. I don't have the actual regular standings pulled up, but they're calling it the.
I think
It's
basically
not the wild
from
card. It should be called
no, not
wild
wild
card
card.
because that would be
You're
cool.
talking, oh, the play-in?
Yeah, the
Play in.
play-in.
That's
Yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah, the play-in.
At this point, we're in danger of losing the play-in to make it to the playoffs. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting a little scared, and part of me wants to just say that we're playing some stuff that we're not the strongest at. Baby Bay just keeps disappointing me a little bit. I keep saying he's a great player, but he keeps making a lot of mistakes. And one thing that really has not impressed me from him is his Sombra. I think that his Sombra is lagging a little bit behind, especially when you're watching things like Deeding, you're
Well,
watching
and then when
Dante.
he goes to Sombra, who goes to Zarya? I forget. Is it Daco? I think it's Daco that's been going to the Zarya.
I believe so. So it's a weird dynamic there, and they've been going to Sombra quite a bit, but
But I think
I don't
that's the
know. It hasn't
problem,
been working
right?
for them.
Is like that was the same thing with Houston. It's like you change one position and then you have to change like three, and then you're all out of whack, right? Like you need your
Exactly. You're
diva
losing your
player to
expertise
play
there and your
Sombra.
comfort.
Well,
Yeah,
and
you
Baby Bay has often been praised as a mechanical god. I don't know that he's been praised a whole bunch as a game sense god.
But yeah,
Uh,
that's my take on Atlanta. I don't know. They're struggling right now. What's your opinion?
I mean, for Baby Bay, I mean, so he's been mechanically good, that's for sure. Positioning-wise, not so much.
He,
Game sense,
he's mechanically amazing. I will tell you, I played a ranked game against him, and he killed our whole team in spawn with Soldier and a
Well,
mercy
to
pocket.
be fair, any
our whole
out
plat team.
player
Yeah, it
will look
was it
amazing
was
playing
a
against us.
plat team. He was working up his first alt, and
I'm pretty sure
it
Jake
was
could have
just
beat us
game
all
it was
on
just game
Tracer.
5, but he was
Come on.
bad. But sorry, Panda, go ahead.
I will say this about Baby Bay, and like if you recognize like when even they were playing against NYXL, like although yes, they ended up beating Nixel in that match they previously faced each other in last stage, but what you have to look at is time to building graviton, and that's all based around average energy charge, and that's just around again going back to my previous point about his game sense being a little bit lackluster. His bubble timings alone on Yakpung are just so, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, or on Pokpo rather, like they're just so lackluster that it's just he makes his team lose zero ultimate fights more often than he helps his team winning just off of spacing alone, and he could end up helping himself out so much more if he would become less antsy on the battlefield because he wants to get work done. I understand that. I mean, like, there's all the DPS players that ended up getting pushed into the Zarya role or into the Brig role. They had to get inside like this once was a very aggressive mindset of playing. You can play like the saving private bumper like Vancouver Titans ends up doing it, and like you throw all your resources out, and like you end up just like granting yourself kills by like inting into the enemy team. Or you can play this passive aggressive style like how San Francisco Shock is playing. And obviously, there's one style that's better than the other because you got to see those two clash in the previous stage finals. But there's somewhere in between that there's a disjoint for the way that Atlanta Reign are just trying to play 3-3 throughout it. And if I'm sorry, if it's not a hit scan, I probably wouldn't want to see Baby Bay on it in the first place. And that's why, like, I'm not gonna lie, his Sombra is just it's just
Although
not good. It's
I
just
will
really not.
say his Farah is pretty awesome. We haven't seen it since stage 1 of season 1, but
Yeah.
or at least not a lot
Yeah,
of it, but it was good.
I do agree there. Just the amount of mistakes I've seen come from Baby Bay this past few games is really high, and it's not just small mistakes. They're big mistakes. I feel like we could have won against Shock, for example, but he got 4 gravitons eaten in a row. That's just not.
You can't
That
let
is
that
just
happen.
poor. Yeah, that is just poor thinking and poor playing on your part.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can get it together. But moving on to my boys, the boys in blue, Dallas Fuel. Wow, we are. We expected. I mean, I expected to get 4-0'd by the Titans because I expected Dallas not to do anything crazy and just try to play their goats because they are one of the better goats teams in the league, but definitely not of the caliber that Shock and Vancouver are on. But definitely, like, if we're just talking goats, they're like the B squad. Or actually, there might not be a B squad. They're like the C squad with everybody else. But they lost to the Hunters and just looked lost. I was watching the game, and I watched Zachary one time, was on Brigitte, had ult charge, changed in spawn to like Hanzo, then changed to Tracer, then changed back to Brigitte. And what this tells me is they're in like an argument about what they should play. And at this point, like, if you're gonna just play goats, take Zachary out and put freaking Mickey in, the guy that like made Brigitte a name in season 1. Give him a shot if you're just gonna play goats, because Zachary, I don't think, has ever fully accepted the job of Brigitte, and I don't think he's good on her. He definitely is. I've touted him as a really good projectile DPS, but we're just not getting to see that. And then the second game
They never switch to that
against the
though. That's the
Titans.
issue.
Well, hold on though. Now the second game against the Titans. Note, their diva player plays Sombra. Now Note does something I haven't seen yet in the Overwatch League. He sticks with his ghost comp. Like literally sticks with his ghost comp like he's a McCree behind the shield, not breaking off to go behind the enemy team and be a mosquito and work up his ult. Literally sticks with his team, getting pulled out of stealth constantly. I have to think that was an on-the-fly change that the players made and not something that Arrow and Jade implemented, because it was actually absurd.
Although to be fair, a lot of players have been playing her a little bit more like that, much less flanky. And if you watch Shanghai Dragons, like Ding or Ding, I don't know how you pronounce his name. He plays with his team a lot, quite
He's not
often,
standing
not
behind the
even going
Reinhardt though.
a lot of the time. Well,
Really?
not all the time, but yeah, it's like new thing, like because they've been prioritizing building EMP over anything else. Like the
But you
hack's
do
still
that
important.
behind the team though too.
The thing is, they don't even go into stealth, because going into stealth and going behind the team is already wasting your time. So I've seen a lot of
I can see
Sombras
that.
going the more aggressive route and like literally just staying with their team, never going into stealth until EMP is farmed enough, and then they'll once they have EMP, they'll go do the route. I don't know
Well,
if
he
what
was going into stealth and just getting pulled out of stealth, like with his team. I mean, it was literally, I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, did they just be like, hey, let's just try note on, we're losing. Let's just try note on Sombra. Like, I
Okay,
don't
how long
know.
did they play him on Sombra though?
2 different maps.
I mean, I'm guessing maybe they're just trying to train Note on Sombra because having your diva play Sombra is your best bet, right?
Maybe.
So they're probably trying to train Note on Sombra, and let's be real here, like you didn't have a lot of chance to. This was against the Titans.
Against the Titans, yes, is where
Yeah.
they tried the note on Sombra.
So you don't have a ton of chance to beat them goats v goats. So like, why not put that out there? Maybe he did a little bit better in scrims or in practice than he showed out on the stage because it's an uncomfortable hero for him, right? Like he's a diva main. He's always been a diva main, and so I don't know if he's always been a diva main. I just
Well,
assumed,
he's always
but
been one in the league, but we definitely saw him flex when he first came over to Dallas. He flexed over to Orisa. Forget what else. He played some Tracer to an actual pretty good degree. But yeah, it
right.
was
So I
just
think he's got the
weird.
skills. I just think maybe all the pieces weren't there, right? Like I think he can get there. And that was the game to try it out against because you probably weren't going to win a map anyways. So you might as well try it there instead of against a team where you're like neck and neck and you're trying real hard to win.
What's the chances of Dallas going 1-6?
I'd have to look at their schedule.
I don't know. At this point, it might happen.
Yeah,
Dallas is
it
struggling a little
really,
bit.
really might happen. They play
They
Spark
play
next week, and they play the Chengdu Hunters again. Then they play New York Excelsior after weeks of practicing Somber Goats. Then they do not go to the homestead. So yeah, that's the last of their
No, then they
games.
play Spitfire. Oh, is that the next stage? Yeah, that's stage 4.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
next stage. I can actually see you guys not picking up a single win, but what I could see you guys doing is taking advantage of the learning experience and bringing in Trill. There's literally no reason why OG shouldn't have any downtime going across his entire career right now. He's put in a lot of work for the team so far. And something else needs to change too. I mean, even to bring it back, like Note has a very strong flexibility, but through the Boston Uprising, he was literally just a diva one trick to them. But his Hanzo slaps. His Tracer is also very decent as well. He flexes a lot on ladder, but is obviously known as a diva player as well. It's the same thing with Jonak and his Zenyatta play as well. Like it's just what we know these players as at this point as well. But
Yep.
they have a strong flexibility to go along with it too. I just think it comes down to coordinating and putting yourself in the stressful mentality so that way you can actually adhere or I guess adapt to the the tough times. Because I mean that's literally what all of their matches are going to be going forward is that you can take those imaginary scrim bucks for what they're worth too. Is like maybe they work and maybe you slap pretty hard in your scrims, but when you go up against the disruptive compositions, that's what they're going to be looking to do against a stronger Goats team, such as the Vancouver Titans, even as well. Is that you got to basically look for any kind of advantage within your own play to basically come out on top. And it's just very unfortunate that they have this tough of a schedule that if they wanted to make it into stage playoffs, they had to have went out early on too.
I do like your idea about getting Trills some playtime. And Trill's a pretty aggressive player, and Trill's ball probably outdoes OGE's ball. So if you wanted to try some of the DPS comps and maybe bring, shake a little dust off Taimu, maybe this would be the time. Like that could be kind of cool. I like that idea.
Taimu has actually taken to Reddit to complain from his lack of playstyle or playtime. I'm sorry, not playstyle. But he misses.
Well, then we shouldn't reinforce that behavior. Let's not put Taimu in.
He
Don't go to
misses the
Reddit.
stage. I don't know. He misses the stage, and he's letting it be known. I mean, they have him in a corner in a room locked, and he's putting his voice out there. He's saying, "I want to be played."
I mean,
It's an
he
appropriate way
is
to express your
there.
opinions.
Yeah, he's there in the dugout with them every game too. It's not like he's lackluster with the team. Harry hasn't had
No.
playtime. Mickey hasn't had playtime. I mean, yeah, this might be the time to shake up your roster. That's a really, really good
What I
point.
what I
Andy.
think is funny is that every time we're at the Overwatch League arena, Mickey is still interviewed, even though he literally hasn't been on the stage since season 1. But we love him.
Yep.
He's not interviewed by us, but he's interviewed by somebody. But wait, one more comment. So you said Dallas might go 1-6, right? What do you think the chances are that Houston will go 6-1?
Pretty good at this
I mean, they play
point. Pretty good.
Paris,
They-
Mayhem,
they'll-
Washington, and Toronto.
Yeah, they got through the toughest matches. So honestly, if they're playing like they're playing this first few, it's smooth sailing for them at this point. Might be your time to recoup some games, Mel.
I've just decided that Dallas and Houston can't be at a high at the same time.
No,
We have to alternate, right?
maybe it's a good idea that
you're
Houston
good,
is
now
getting
you're
bought
good.
out and going to a different city. Maybe then you can share wins.
Well,
Maybe.
something we don't talk about a lot is the actual Washington Justice. And I mean, it's just we have 20 teams. We don't get to talk about everybody, and
Wonder why.
we don't really want to just shit on a team, So what? You are a huge fan, Andy. So why don't you tell us what's going on, what you think's going to happen in the future, and where you think this team's going? Whatever you want to hit on it.
I mean, much like everybody else, I'm a huge fan for them because obviously they're my home team, right? There's not every day that you can say like I have a home esports team in the game that I love that I can actually root for.
Lucky.
So yeah. So I'll be able to live and die by these guys too. I mean, like I said, I've been able to meet personally with them and get to know them a lot too. Like Fosix, Riley, if you ever see this, you're my boy. But it's It's one of those things for the teams that they're struggling internally. You look at their plays, and I was even saying while I was emceeing this past game, it was just tough to watch because their overall drive from when they're in the neutral on what they're trying to find in value for their own bubble timings and their own just resource management is just so off. It just seems that there is a miscommunication. Physically, you can see the miscommunications that are happening just off of their own positioning. Like they're jostling positioning not against the enemy team, but within their own selves too. Like where Corey's standing in conjunction to where Otto is always too far forward from Giannis, which says a lot too, because I mean, it's not like Giannis is a very passive main tank.
Definitely not. Definitely, it's never been said.
Yeah, so I mean, like the stronger parts of the Washington Justice, they come around this DPS play. So I think if there's any sort of light in the darkness for this team, it's that little elephant in the room about the 2-2-2 roll lock coming in stage 4. That's their saving grace. That if we end up getting not forced, but if the entire league gets being forced to DPS and Corey can come out on McCree and Widowmaker, then yeah, we're gonna do a lot better.
And don't forget, if 222 comes in, Mercy gets more play, and you guys have Arc the Undying, which is the opposite when he plays Lucio.
He died. He does die with beat a lot. So he died. He actually got. I went back and I recounted through the VOD. He got bashed. He got stunned out of his sound barrier 4 times in this past match, which says a lot. Because it's just like the timing's wrong. Whether it's him realizing it in game or it's again going back to the communication. There's something internally that's very difficult for the entire team of Washington to gather around too. Because I mean, if you break it down fully, you look at their English speaking versus their Korean speaking, and it's basically a 3-3 because Ark speaks very, very good English. Giannis also speaks decent English as well, but Otto barely speaks any English. I know Sansan barely speaks any English as well too. So it comes down to like how is this team coming? Is it like the LA Gladiators situation when Fisher was there and Bishu was acting as this interpreter between all different formats of how they're conversating with each other, which can make hesitation, which again they are exhibiting in the middle of their play as well. They're disjointed in the middle of their engagements, and it just doesn't look good. That again, it sounds really forehead to say that practice makes perfect for this team, but the more they get comfortable with each other and just through muscle memory alone is where they're going to succeed. Corey obviously doesn't seem comfortable playing Zarya by any means necessary, whether it comes down to just reformatting the front line to become more comfortable in the GOATS matchup or just trying to pray for RNG that the 2-2-2 roll lock comes around and DPS can actually happen for this team. There's a lot going wrong. I mean, I don't see, again, going back to the same thing for the Dallas Fuel, I really don't see the problem in making this a full split for the team. Obviously, we can't sub out any main tanks because, hey, we only have one, but put in Stratus in that flex DPS position. Like, let's see some crazy triple DPS comps coming out from this team, right? Like, try to find their exactly, because try to find their comfort, because at this point, it's clearly not GOATS, right? Like, they have to find something that's going to work out for them, and it's not 3-3, but and maybe their DPS can end up putting in work.
I was in the same place with Houston.
Exactly.
And look what works out for them. Getting beat up too. It's like teams have been honing in on Sleepy hardcore and just taking advantage of him.
I agree. I think one thing that I'd like to praise the Justice on is that I think that the Justice has done a really good job of making active changes to improve their roster when they realized that things needed to be changed, right? So like nothing's more frustrating than to be a fan and have a team that sucks and is just still sucking, right? But if you've got a team that's not doing well and then you're making changes, then you can kind of blame those suckiness on the changes because they're not a well-formed team yet. And I do think the longer they play together, the better they would get. But at this point, you've got people that have been playing together for 2 stages versus the Justice who's been playing together for a couple weeks, right? And so there's going to be some disconnect there. And they're not bringing anything different, so their GOATS is definitely not going to be up to par because communication is such a key point in GOATS.
That's literally more than half of GOATS in a nutshell. It's just trusting in your teammates that the right thing could end up happening, right? Like if if I'm the Reinhardt and I pin in and you're the Zarya, that if I pin in and after the pin completes, that then I get the bubble to maximize the efficiency of that bubble. Like that's what needs to happen.
Right.
Not even through communication, but just in normal play alone too. But I mean, you look at some of the brighter spots for the Justice itself, and it's basically just around Sleepy. I would probably put Sansam as like a close second, but other than that, I mean, Sleepy's like time to build trance, like his damage done even in losing matches is just so stellar that it's just something that the Justice are really lacking as far as anything is concerned too. And you bring yourself back to the reverse sweep. Everybody keeps on saying that reverse sweep happened because of Sleepy's Ana, those biotic grenades that were coming around that made it look so easy for the front line to actually find kills. It was just the controlling of the tempo from supports alone. But I mean, in this day and age, especially for any team, whether it's 3-3 or DPS, like you need something more than just a strong support line. Like you need
Right.
one strong member in every single role, and that's just where the Justice truly are struggling right now.
Yeah.
Well, we hope they get it going. The last two things I want to talk about, I'll let you guys, whoever jumps in first. I want to talk about the fall of the Boston Uprising, and I want to talk about Dynasty kind of sticking with their two rosters.
I mean, I'll talk about Dynasty. So, like,
Okay, go ahead.
Dynasty, I think it's interesting that they have these two completely separate rosters, right? And I think I said last week that I think there's going to come a point where that's just not viable, right? Like I get it in theory that like, yeah, that'd be great. We have 2 games in a week. You can prepare each roster for a different team. You can scrim against each other and it'll be great. But in all reality, you're going to have outliers. You're going to have somebody that plays better on one of the rosters that you want to be on your main roster, right? But if you don't have a main roster, you don't have that. So I think there's that disconnect. But you look at them this week, they played one roster against who? The Rain, and they went 4-0. Great. That was their Marvel roster, right? They come out against Shock playing their Marvel roster. And then they swap it, I think at like map 3, where they bring
Yes,
in
map 3. They swapped out all 5 except for Ryu Jae-hong.
yeah, so they bring in everybody from the other roster except they keep Ryu Jae because he's Ryu Jae,
Anna,
right?
because
And
because they
Anna's been
because they were playing Summer Goats. They wanted,
right,
one of the best Annas in history. I get the move.
right. I get that too, but that's what I'm talking about. You put one different person who maybe hasn't been scrimming with that team the entire week because they're good at their role. I don't think that makes a good cohesive team. I think you'd be better off having 6 players play the entire time and figure out a rhythm. There are certain nuances you need to prepare for a team, but they're not as big, I don't think, as just teamwork in general. So pick your best 6 and put them together. I don't like it. I know you do. I just don't like it.
Andy, I played. You have any thoughts on this?
I still think it's interesting. It's not backfiring on them. I mean, they played against one of the stronger teams, and both of the rosters they couldn't make it. But I don't know. It's working against some of the other teams. It worked against Atlanta, and Seoul Dynasty is doing fairly well right now. I think it's kind of impressive that they're actually holding 2 rosters separately that are doing success or playing successfully right now. Getting beat by the second or for the best team in the league right now is I don't know if it's a cause for concern.
Who
They
was
might
also a little bit jaded because they just got beat by Houston. I'm just gonna say. So Shock
maybe they
was
were
like,
coming
"We're not
in
gonna get beat
even
again."
stronger. Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh-uh.
Shock
exactly.
came in pretty upset. But yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, Andy, do you have anything to add before I put my 2 cents in?
For Soul, I mean, their understanding of like doing all this is probably more map specific. Is like this is the roster for the compositions that we practice here. I mean, you even saw like they were able to fall back on 3-3 pretty well, and a different 3-3 as well. Even when Fleta and Munchkin were playing, now Munchkin's playing the Zarya and Fleta's playing the Brigitte when they were out on Havana in that first match against Chengdu. Which was really, really weird at first glance, but then Munchkin again was also he was a prolific hit scan and played a lot of good tracer as well. So the amount of heroes that kid can play at a high level just amazes me every single time I see them play on stage. But the thing about Soul Dynasty and about like making specific map specialty for their rosters, it hurts them more than anything too, because especially when you go back to 3-3 or any composition, one play style is going to be incredibly different. Although Zumba and Michelle are very good diva players, both play extremely different. Michelle plays more passive aggressive position on the high ground, whereas Zumba takes aggressive high ground positioning to play for the same exact outcome, which is both eating Graviton Surge and finding free damage over top of the Reinhardt shield. So I think going forward, there's really no reason to swap off of the Marvel. As much as Fisher is an amazing main tank and everybody keeps singing high praise, there's really no reason to ever sign off of the Marvel Michelle tank duo line, in my opinion, too. Those two kids have been playing together since season 2 of, or even I think season 1 of 2018 to Chinese Contenders. They were
Oh
on a
wait,
team
is it
that's
Marvel and Michelle?
Marvel and Michelle, yeah, and Marvel and
Yes,
Zumba were
definitely.
playing a lot as well too. But when they end up going over to the Sombra variation of the comp of like a Ryan Zarya Sombra composition, then you can keep Munchkin into play the Zarya, and then you can keep Fleta there as well, or Illicit for that matter to play that role, and you can flex accordingly. Same thing with Munchkin in there to play that flex lifestyle. But I just don't see a realm where you wouldn't keep Michelle in to flex over to that high class Sombra play that we've known and loved to come out from Soul Dynasty since the first stage of the season. And the same thing for their dive sequence as well. There was a time when literally they were running house in the Pacific region from the Chinese Contenders spot. Marvel and Michelle on their Winston and Diva play, they work together very, very well. And I'm not saying that Zumba is bad because they always find probably at minimum 2 of their self destructs, but it's just what works well for Soul Dynasty statistically at this point, all across this entire season.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting that they had Fitz on Sombra for a while instead of Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was I was
That
like,
was-
okay.
It depends if they need to run Winston Diva, and then yes, it would end up being either Fleta, Munchkin, or Fitz on the Sombra because they only have one or 2 Diva players for that matter, but obviously only one's going to be in at a time, either Zumba or Michelle.
But in their 2 rosters that they have right now, they have Marvel and Zumba, and then Fisher and Michelle is what they've been running this stage.
No. I don't think so.
They've
That's
run
what
all
they ran
3.
this week.
They've run all 3
Yeah,
variations of
they've
it.
tried,
Yep.
but with last week and this week, the 2 separate rosters have been pretty much Michelle Marvel. And so my thoughts on this thing, I said it last week. I thought it was brilliant to make 2 separate rosters that could scrim against each other in internal scrims. I didn't think this week plucking one person out, Rio Jaehong, and putting him in the other roster was really the best idea. I say you just go with the other roster if you're going to do this. But I just thought it was amazing because of double week schedules. Like each roster could focus specifically on their team that they're going up against. I thought it was brilliant, but they didn't end up doing what I thought they were going to do. So I have to take it back and say a little less brilliant. But we only have time for one more talk, so I'll leave it up to you guys. Do you want to talk about the fall of Boston or the spiral of fusions? Or fusion? It was almost like the same question, but I changed it. Fusion or Boston? What do you guys want to talk about?
I feel like both are just devastating conversations within their own self.
Right?
Yeah, I think that both teams are struggling right now. They started off the season really well, and they've been slowly declining. They're teams that haven't found their groove. I think that Fusions might be getting like that mid-season kind of like blues a little bit, because he started really strong and really passionate. But I think that the grind
And had a
maybe
lot of
hasn't cut it.
success right out the gate, too.
And right out the gate, he had a lot of success, and I think he's hit a few brick walls here and there. And this is about the time where like a lot of I feel like that mid-season grind sets in, right? Like, oh, this is my job, kind of thing. It might be happening to him. This is just speculation, though. And
I
part of
also
why
feel like,
his
though,
frustration is showing.
no, I was just gonna say I think he's a Reinhardt main, and Reinhardt was the tank
Yeah.
before, and now there's a lot more flex to Wrecking Ball and to Winston, and I think he's very frustrated with his play. I just don't think he is as good on those characters by any stretch of the imagination, and he's aware of that. I think he's just a self-aware person. It's kind of like
You also have
Jake
to
trying to
think
play
about
Tracer. Sorry.
You also have to think about the Persia conundrum. First off, Persia at this stage comes in, takes Kelix's spot. then comes in and takes Aim God's spot, and Kellix gets put back in. And it's like they're just shuffling their support lines.
Yeah, which makes it really hard for a tank, I think. You know, a tank relies on knowing and trusting when their healer is going to do X, Y, and Z, just like they do their Zarya, or they rely on their Zarya to know, like, when I do this, you're going to bubble me, right? And then when their Zarya doesn't, it looks like I'm an idiot because I get killed because I didn't have a bubble and I thought I was going to. Same with the supports.
Story
Like,
of my life
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
ladder.
yeah, yeah. But, like, same thing with supports. I think if you trust your supports are gonna heal you, but then your supports aren't on the same wavelength as you, and they're in a different position, and they can't heal you, and X, Y, and Z happens, you're frustrated with yourself because you know that you dropped the ball, and you're the one on camera that shows, like, "Yeah, what the heck was that? Like, why'd you just charge in there?" But, like, in all reality, it could be a combination of 12 different things.
They've
Yeah.
always had that struggle. Boston has just like playing around with their multiple rosters. We call him President Huck, and like it always seems like he's trying to work out like some kind of magic with his roster, and it just doesn't play well. If I'm gonna be like honest here, I think there's a lot of things that Fusions just misses in general. I mean, for one, I know for a fact that he misses Note. Having that diva play works very well with him too. He misses being on the field with Kellix and Aim God. Both of those work really well for his play style. Because I mean, you look at Alamong coming in for Kellix, and then you look for Persia coming in for Aim God. Aim God was a very hyper aggressive Zenyatta, which worked really well for the passive aggressive style of Fusions in the hyper aggressive comms as well. But Alamong is also very vocal, to my understanding, as well, and is also a very aggressive Lucio who's always in that frontal spot where he's not at where Fusions doesn't necessarily want to be. He wants to play that more corral and pounce kind of type style where he baits you into making the decision as the enemy main tank, and then he'll collapse on top of you with it. And then RCK, I mean, I'm gonna level with you. I mean, he's just not as good as a diva as Note is, and the numbers are right there for it as well, just to back up that statement.
He eats more grabs though.
He does eat more grabs for sure, but he doesn't find as much spacing, nor does he deny more backline pressure than the Note does as well. And it just goes around to that same play style that Fusions knows and loves, that his team always has his back. But with this roster that they're currently fielding with Alamong, Persia, and RCK, everybody right down to Blase are just so out of position that they just look like kids lost in a candy store, just looking for the right thing to engage on. Their focus fire is all going crazy. They never really finish out any fights, and even when ultimates are being used, as such like an Earthshatter and Graviton, enemies aren't exploding like they do when like you watch say like NYXL pull an Nene Grav, or even like they're able to actually burst through those targets where Boston Uprising are just struggling internally just off of their comms alone. And I think especially all of us see Fusions how much he calms, and even when he loses his voice before an interview, he calms a lot too. So if anything's frustrating him more than anything, it has to be centered around that.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought of one thing though. Shazir's in the chat, and I think it would be just disrespectful to him as a producer of the show to not talk about Valiant's current uptick. So let's hit on that really quick before we close out. So Valiant got Fact Fiction over, and they've been looking good, but I fear for them going forward against their last games are Shanghai Dragons, Vancouver Titans, Hanzo Spark, and the London Spitfire. Like they don't have an easy team to go against for the remainder. They're 2-1 right now, and they've been looking good.
They've been looking good, but they looked good against the Chengdu Hunters and the Hangzhou Charge. So they lost against Shanghai Dragons already. So maybe they can pull it together and get a win this next game when they go against Shanghai Dragons. But it was a
To be
1-3
fair,
loss.
though, Shanghai Dragons is no longer, they lost to Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Shanghai's pretty good
Very
right now.
good team right now.
Agreed. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say Shanghai was bad. I was just saying they've already lost to them. So going up against them, they're probably going to lose against Titans. Spark, I think they have a chance. Spark is a mid-tier team.
Sparks looked really good, dude.
I don't see Valiant getting a single win through the rest of the stage. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I mean, London could take the game off. Like London
I
does
see
that
Factor
sometimes.
Fiction getting smacked by Gushue in the neutral. I'm not gonna lie. Like Hangzhou
Yeah.
Spark are
Primal Blade.
they've been on the up and up since stage one. And I mean, like they came into this entire season with a very mixed roster, and Gushue is part of the main roster. He's the only person that speaks Chinese fully. The rest of the team speaks Korean around him, and now you look at them and you talk about like trust, and as far as the roster hasn't been mixed up besides when Crystal comes into play, a couple different heroes here and there, but like I don't know, that team is terrifying to me. I mean,
Well,
they've beaten the Spitfire. Like you look at the work that they were able to do in the stage playoffs last stage. I mean,
you've
this team is so on the up and up. And Fact of Fiction is, I'm sorry, he's just a little NA boy that plays a very good Reinhardt, and that's just not gonna cut it against Hangzhou.
It's
And are
mediocre,
you sure you're
right?
not biased because you cast Chinese contenders?
I'm more than confident. I promise you that much. Because it's more than that too, right? I mean, like I can even tell you that their schedule was incredibly easy against Chengdu Hunters, where they played a lot of Jakirin, where Jakirin is not the greatest Reinhardt either. Like he has just as much problems hitting his shift key as Giannis does. And against Guangzhou, the Charge. I mean that team is just terrible within its own self too. I mean, you talk about synergistic issues, you talk about just resource management issues. I mean, that within its own self, that if Valiant didn't win that game, then I'm questioning their players more than I'm questioning Guangzhou, because they're still messing with like how their synergy is working with all their DPS players, such as Nero getting called up and all that kind of stuff as well. Papa has been having a terrible stage so far, but that kind of speaks for its own self too. But you look at, I mean, Shanghai Dragons. I mean, we talked about Ding a lot throughout the show too. I mean, he's a scary individual right
The
next to
ding.
DM. Yeah, exactly. And then
Sorry, I just think about him playing Junkrat. I think da-ding.
every single time, I feel like it's probably in his hero pool, and we're probably just like
Oh,
expecting
it
him to play.
definitely is. I've seen him play it in stage 2, maybe.
But there's only one team that I can see the Valiant like possibly squeaking a win out, and that would probably be against Shanghai Dragons, and that's if the map pool plays out to their liking. But I highly doubt it. London Spitfire is a very shaky team within its own self, but at least Fury's been a little bit more consistent as of late too. So I think if we just go straight 3-3, then yeah, I mean
I
I
just
can
feel like
see.
if London is got it in the bag for the stage in the season playoffs at that point,
Yeah.
they could take the day off.
It is,
Like they're
and
known to do that.
it is kind of good for Valiant that they play him the last game. So I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
Shaz
Like-
in chat thinks that Spitfire's the only game they win. He doesn't even think Shanghai wins. So
Shanghai was a rough game for them last time. I mean, it was closer than a 1-3 score says, I think, but it's still, I don't
Yeah.
think it was close enough to.
only time will tell. But we have come to the end of our show. All good things must come to an end. So we are going to start wrapping up. This week's episode was brought to you by nothing. It was brought to you by Twitter. Dang it, I just totally screwed that up, guys.
Yeah.
I'm
that
going
was
to
an
start
epic fail.
over. Breathe. All right. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter at AlRecap. If you want to say something a little bit longer, like our listener Kenny G did this last week, we appreciate the criticism and help at honing our craft. You can send those emails to contact@alrecap.com. If you want to join our Discord, you can join it by typing discord.me/OmnicLab into your browser of choice. Game night is going to be this month on the 28th. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about game night?
Come hang out. We're always there. Happens at the end of the month. It's super fun. Usually starts around 8 p.m. Eastern. If you want to find people to play with of all ranks and levels, is the place to do so. See you there.
Yep. Last time we had 3 different lobbies. It was pretty kicking. I think Rob said he wanted to do a lobby straight for workshop games next time around, so that might be an option for you guys. Everybody's welcome. Please come and join us. We stream live every Monday, usually around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/AlRecap. You can find the video version of our show on youtube.com/AlRecap. If you want to find the audio version, you can find it on almost every major podcatcher, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. Just search Overwatch League. You will see us. How can you support the show? You can support the show by doing what you're doing right now and listening. Even better, tell your friends. Yell it out your front door. Tell Reddit. Tell whatever, Tumblr, whatever you're into, Facebook, just get the name out. If you want to go a step further, you could leave us a review. We do read all 5-star reviews on the show. Reviews on iTunes have been really scarce, so please help us out and leave one there. If you want to support us even further, you can go to patreon.com/AlRecap. And, just for $1 an episode, you can make a difference in these podcasters' lives. All right, so to finish it out, Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch.
And iPlay, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
And Andy, since you are a guest, feel free to plug whatever you want in this point. Like we just do our regular plugs, but you do a lot of different things. So feel free to plug whatever you would like right now, sir.
Sure. Yeah, you all can find me on my Twitter. It's twitter.com/PKMNPanda. It's same thing for my Twitch as well, PKMNPanda for TTTV as well. So you can find me doing a whole bunch of antics there, a whole bunch of analytical content, lots of fun game playthroughs as well. But you can find me on my day-to-day and where I'm basically going to be popping up for like podcasts, broadcasts, and all these different casts as well, all throughout my Twitter, which again is twitter.com/PKMNPanda.
And in the pre-show, you kind of hinted to us about something you're starting new. Do you want to talk about any of that at all, or give a little teaser?
About which part? Like my team?
No,
That's coming around, or?
the content you're getting ready to produce. You said like maybe every other day.
Oh well, that's something again. Like just like stay tuned onto my Twitter account because like the YouTube page isn't even fully built yet either. But it's all going to be based around analytical Overwatch League content. It's going to be going across like for fights that ended up working where they necessarily shouldn't have. Unfolding compositions, all that kind of stuff. Just the unfolding of Overwatch in front of your very eyes, rather than just what you see on a day to day. So again, just like follow my Twitter and make sure that you're just staying up to date on everything that I'm doing on my day to day because that content is about to be coming out very soon.
All right, and that is at PKMN Panda.
That's me.
And if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. That's going to end the episode for this week. We thank you all for listening, and we're out.
Bye.
Bye.